Analysis of root. Today is March 28, 1998. Last week, we talked about analysis of feeling. Today, we're going to discuss analysis of root. First of all, we're going to discuss Hichu Sangaha. Hichu is root. Sangaha is a summary. So, Hichu Sangaha means summary of root. We already know about the 6 roots, right? What are they? Loba root, dosa root, moha root, aloba root, adosa root, and amoha root. In Pali, we call them loba hichu, dosa hichu, moha hichu, aloba hichu, adosa hichu, and amoha hichu. Loba is attachment, dosa is hatred or aversion, and moha is delusion or ignorance. These 3 roots are called immoral or unwholesome roots. Whenever we do a demeritorious deed, loba, dosa and or moha arise. Aloba hichu is non-attachment or generosity, adosa hichu is non-anger, goodwill or loving kindness, and amoha hichu is panya or wisdom. These 3 roots are called moral or indeterminate roots. We can't just call them moral or wholesome roots, because wholesome is kusala. These 3 roots are mental factors that can associate with resultant and functional consciousness too, so we can't just call them wholesome roots. Instead, we call them wholesome, or moral, or indeterminate, abhyakata. When we do padana chanting, we talk about kusala dhamma, akusala dhamma, and abhyakata dhamma. Abhyakata means that it's not wholesome or unwholesome. It refers to resultant and functional consciousness. Not only that, but abhyakata dhamma also refers to rupa, material form, and nibbana. If you say abhyakata sata, you are referring to resultant and functional consciousness, and if you say abhyakata dhamma, you are referring to resultant and functional consciousness, the 28 kinds of material form, and nibbana. Because rupa and nibbana aren't wholesome or unwholesome, they are abhyakata. When we do meritorious deeds, it is based on aloba, generosity or non-attachment, adosa, loving kindness or goodwill, or amoha, wisdom. That's why these are called the good roots. So, we have 3 good roots and 3 evil roots. Next, we're going to do an analysis of consciousness. In other words, let's look at how many roots various types of consciousness have. Look at loba. Think about its nature. It's not so difficult. Loba hichu is associated with the 8 types of loba mula sata. How many total roots do they have, though? Only 2. There's also moha hichu. Why? Because moha, along with ahirika, anatapa, and uddhacca, comprise the 4 unwholesome universal mental factors. Whatever unwholesome consciousness arises, these 4 mental factors are always associated with it. And that's why loba mula sata has 2 roots, loba hichu and moha hichu. What does this look like? Let's look at an example. Say you want to steal someone's property. Your desire is not good, it's bad. In that moment, your mind is loba. It is rooted in loba. Also, because you don't understand the consequences of this bad deed, that's moha, or ignorance. If you knew better, you wouldn't steal. But because you don't know better, there is moha hichu. So, there's loba hichu and moha hichu in loba mula sata. In Pali, they call that davyatuka. But we'll talk about that later. Next, dosa mula sata is of 2 kinds. How many roots do they have? 2 roots. They are dosa hichu and moha hichu. Why dosa hichu? Because dosa mental factors always associate with dosa mula sata. What about moha hichu? If you don't understand that dosa is unwholesome, then you have moha. And, once again, because dosa is unwholesome consciousness, moha cetasika arises as an unwholesome universal mental factor. Whatever unwholesome consciousness arises, moha is always associated with it. That's why dosa mula sata has 2 roots, dosa hichu and moha hichu. Now, moha mula sata. It consists of 2 types, vicikiccha and uddhacca. How many roots? Only 1 root. Why? Loba cetasika is just associated with the 8 types of loba mula sata, and dosa cetasika just arises with dosa mula sata. That leaves moha mula sata with only moha hichu. Vicikiccha is doubt, uddhacca is distraction or restlessness. If your mind starts to wander, for example, it's not loba or dosa, it's just moha. So, the 8 types of loba mula sata have 2 roots, loba hichu and moha hichu, and the 2 types of dosa mula sata have 2 roots, dosa hichu and moha hichu. The 2 types of moha mula sata have just 1 root, moha hichu. Because of delusion, there is doubt. If you don't understand rightly, that is, you don't understand the nature of reality, you have doubt. This is because of your delusion, or moha. So, collectively, loba mula sata, dosa mula sata, and Moha Mula Sata. In other words, the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness have a total of 3 roots. Whatever we do that is demeritorious is based upon at least one of these 3 roots. You might have attachment or hatred or ignorance, and so you do something bad. Let's look at alobha now. This is non-attachment or generosity. How many types of consciousness have alobha hichu? 59. As it turns out, it's the same for adosa hichu as well. What are the 59 types of consciousness? Let's start by looking at the 24 types of sense sphere beautiful consciousness. Among these 24, we have 4 types that are with knowledge in each of wholesome consciousness, resultant consciousness, and resultant consciousness. That's a total of 12 that are with knowledge. The remaining 12 types of sense sphere beautiful consciousness are without knowledge. These 24 types of consciousness have both alobha hichu and adosa hichu. Think about when we talked about combinations of consciousness and mental factors. Alobha cetasika and adosa cetasika are amongst the 19 kinds of beautiful universal mental factors. How many types of beautiful consciousness do we have? Excluding, of course, the 12 types of unwholesome consciousness and the 18 types of rootless consciousness, that's 59 types of beautiful consciousness. Whenever any type of beautiful consciousness arises, these 19 kinds of beautiful universal mental factors will always associate with it. That's why we see alobha and adosa in 59 types of consciousness. So, among the 59 types of beautiful consciousness, 24 of them are part of sense sphere beautiful consciousness. Between form sphere consciousness and formless sphere consciousness, that is, sublime consciousness, we have another 27 types with alobha and adosa. And there's also supramundane consciousness, briefly, 4 types of magga, and 4 types of phala. Altogether, that's 59 types of consciousness. These 59 types of consciousness have alobha hichu and adosa hichu. Whenever you practice generosity, observe the 8 precepts, chant, or sit in meditation, you do it because of alobha, non-attachment. You also do it because you have goodwill, loving kindness. This is adosa. How about amoha hichu? With how many types of consciousness does it associate? 47. Think again about when we talked about combinations of consciousness and mental factors. Wisdom associates only with jnana sampayuta, right? In sense sphere beautiful consciousness, how many types are with knowledge? 12. There are another 27 types amongst sublime consciousness and 8 types amongst supramundane consciousness. Even though we don't see the words jnana sampayuta in sublime or supramundane consciousness, knowledge is there nonetheless. Without wisdom, we cannot gain jhana, magga or phala. So, 12 types of sense sphere beautiful consciousness, 27 types of sublime consciousness, and 8 types of supramundane consciousness total 47 types of consciousness with which amoha is associated. These 47 types of consciousness don't only have amoha hichu. They also have alobha hichu and adosa hichu, right? The 12 types of sense sphere beautiful consciousness that are jnana vipayuta have only 2 roots, alobha hichu and adosa hichu. There's no amoha hichu. The 12 types that are jnana sampayuta have 3 roots, right? See how we can classify all types of consciousness according to the 6 roots. We already know that moha is common to all unwholesome consciousness, right? What about consciousness that has no root, i.e., no lobha hichu, no dosa hichu, no moha hichu, no alobha hichu, no adosa hichu, and no amoha hichu? We call this ahatuka. Hichu means root, and a means no. There are 18 types of rootless consciousness. When we speak of one hichu sata, we are referring to the 2 types of consciousness with one root, moha hichu. Moha mula sata has just that one root. How many 2 hichu sata are there? 22. These 22 types of consciousness have 2 roots. What are they? The 8 types of lobha mula sata and the 2 types of dosa mula sata amount to 10 of them. Lobha mula sata has lobha and moha, and dosa mula sata has dosa and moha. They have just 2 roots. The number is the same but the roots themselves differ. What about the other 12 types of 2 hichu sata? They are the 12 types of sense sphere beautiful consciousness that are without knowledge. These 12 types of consciousness have a lobha hichu and a dosa hichu. So, there are 2 types of consciousness with 1 root, and 22 types of consciousness with 2 roots. How many types of consciousness have 3 roots? 47. What are they? Alobha, adosa and amoha. And we have 18 types of consciousness with no root. They have 0. A student asks a question. Q. How can you have consciousness without a root? Resultant consciousness isn't wholesome or unwholesome. It's resultant. When I consciousness arises, we can't say that it's loba or aloba, right? It's just resultant or functional consciousness. It is the result of wholesome and unwholesome consciousness. That's why we say it has no root. We call it ahatuka, q. So sense consciousness and body consciousness don't need to have a root? Right, no root. These 18 types of consciousness have no root. And now, we go to Kika Sangaha, function.